to the secrets we keep and the nights you'll never know about.
Cheers to that, brother. You clean up well.
He whispered to his best man. She has no idea. But Melissa Chambers was standing right outside the door, and she heard everything. What happened next at that $300,000 wedding became the most talked about event in Houston high society for the next decade. 300 guests, a custom Vera Wang gown, a 12-piece orchestra, 500 white roses flown in from Ecuador. The grand ballroom of the Worthington Hotel had never looked more beautiful, draped in silk and candlelight for what was supposed to be the wedding of the year. And it was, just not in the way anyone expected. Melissa Chambers stood in the bridal suite on the 4th floor, surrounded by champagne flutes and excited bridesmaids, looking like every little girl's dream of a princess bride. Her honey blonde hair was swept up in an elegant chignon, odd loose tendrils framing her delicate face. Her hazel eyes sparkled in the soft lighting. Her makeup was flawless, subtle, designed to make her look naturally radiant rather than painted. The gown alone had cost $47,000. Hand-sewn Alençon lace over Italian silk, a cathedral train that required 2 attendants to carry, a bodice that fit her like it had been sculpted onto her body. Because it had been. 3 fittings in New York, 2 more in Houston. Perfection didn't happen by accident. Everything was perfect. The flowers, the music, the venue, the groom, especially the groom. Tyler Morrison was the kind of man who made other women jealous and other men envious. Tall, dark-haired, with a smile that could sell anything to anyone. He'd swept into Melissa's life 18 months ago at a charity gala, charming her father, impressing her mother, and making Melissa feel like the only woman in any room they entered. He was a real estate agent with ambition. She was the only daughter of Richard Chambers, founder of Chambers Construction, a company worth north of $40 million. From the outside, it looked like a fairy tale. From the inside, it was about to become something else entirely. The bridal suite smelled like roses and expensive perfume. Samantha Reyes, Melissa's maid of honor and best friend since their freshman year at Rice University, was adjusting the train of the gown while the photographer captured candid moments. "You look incredible," Sam said, her dark eyes warm with genuine happiness. "Tyler's going to lose his mind when he sees you," Melissa smiled, but something flickered behind her eyes. She'd been feeling strange all morning. Not cold feet exactly, something else. A whisper of unease she couldn't quite name. "Has anyone seen my grandmother's earrings?" Melissa asked suddenly, touching her bare earlobes. "I was supposed to wear them, something old." One of the bridesmaids checked the jewelry case. "They're not here. Maybe they're in the groom's suite. Tyler was looking at them last night, remember? He said they were beautiful." Melissa nodded slowly. "I'll go get them. I need a minute anyway." "I'll come with you," Sam offered. "No, stay. Make sure the photographer gets shots of everyone. I just need a quick minute alone before everything starts." She gathered her train carefully and slipped out of the bridal suite, her silk slippers silent on the hotel's plush carpet. The groom's suite was just down the hall, around the corner. The ceremony was in 1 hour. Everything was on schedule. Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. Melissa approached the door to the groom's suite and heard laughter from inside. Male voices. Tyler and his best man, Ryan Torres. She smiled slightly, reaching for the door handle. Then she heard her name. She froze, her hand hovering inches from the brass handle. The door was slightly ajar, voices carrying clearly into the hallway. Tyler's voice, warm and confident, the voice that had whispered "I love you" into her ear 1,000 times. Bro, she has no idea, none. She thinks this is real. Ryan's voice, laughing. "You're telling me you've been playing her this whole time?" "Playing her. I've been closing her. This is the biggest deal of my career." More laughter. Ice formed in Melissa's chest. "Seriously though," Ryan said, "what's the timeline?" "You can't stay married to her forever. 2 years, maybe 3. Long enough to get access to daddy's money. Long enough for some assets to become joint. Then I file, claim irreconcilable differences, and walk away with half of whatever he's given us." "What about the prenup? Her dad made you sign one, right?" Tyler's laugh was ugly, dismissive. "My lawyer looked at it. Total amateur hour. Bunch of loopholes I can drive a truck through. Plus, by the time I file, we'll have joint accounts, joint property, joint everything. The prenup won't matter. You're a genius, bro. The commission on this one? Tyler's voice was thick with satisfaction. About $20 million. Give or take. They clinked glasses. Someone turned up music. More laughter. Melissa stood frozen in the hallway, her $47,000 wedding gown suddenly feeling like a costume. Like a prop in someone else's show. She didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She didn't burst through the door screaming. Instead, she did something else. Very slowly, very quietly, she pulled her phone from the small pocket hidden in the folds of her dress. She opened the voice recorder app. She pressed record. And she listened for 2 more minutes. She heard Tyler describe how he'd researched her family's net worth before approaching her at the gala. She heard Ryan joke about how easy it had been to fool her. She heard Tyler say her father was a sucker who'd believe anything as long as his precious daughter was happy. She heard enough. Then she turned and walked away, her silk slippers still silent, her face completely blank, her phone still recording in her pocket. Back in the bridal suite, Samantha took one look at her and knew something was wrong. Mel? You're white as a ghost. What happened? Melissa closed the door behind her, locked it, walked to the window and stood there for a long moment, looking out at the Houston skyline, at the world that had just shifted beneath her feet. Mel, you're scaring me. Talk to me. Melissa turned around. Her eyes were dry. Her voice was steady. I need you to listen to something. She pulled out her phone and pressed play. For 2 minutes and 37 seconds, Tyler's voice filled the bridal suite. His laugh, his contempt, his careful calculation. When it ended, Samantha's face had gone from confused to horrified to something else entirely. Something furious. We're canceling. Sam's voice shook. Right now. I'll tell everyone there's a family emergency. No. The word was quiet. Final. Melissa turned back to the window, her reflection ghostly against the glass. No, she repeated. We're not canceling. Mel, you can't marry him. Not after. I'm not going to marry him. Not really. She turned around, and Samantha saw something in her best friend's eyes she'd never seen before. Something cold, something calculating, something that looked almost like her father in a boardroom. He wants a show? Melissa said softly. I'll give him a show. She picked up the hotel phone. Get me my father, and call Daniel Whitmore. Tell them both to come to the bridal suite immediately. Tell them it's urgent. What are you going to do? Melissa looked at her reflection in the mirror. The perfect bride, the perfect target, the perfect fool. Not anymore. I'm going to walk down that aisle, she said. I'm going to say I do. And then, at the reception, in front of every person Tyler wanted to impress, I'm going to show them all exactly who he really is. Her eyes met Samantha's in the mirror. By the time I'm done, he won't just lose me. He'll lose everything. What Melissa did next at that wedding became legendary. But before I show you exactly how she destroyed Tyler Morrison in front of 300 guests, I need you to do something important. If you believe in real stories about justice, karma, and women who refuse to be victims, hit that subscribe button right now. Seriously, take 2 seconds and click it. Then smash that like button because it genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need these stories. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Are you in Houston, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Chicago, Miami, New York? I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's get back to Melissa, because the reception speech she gave is the most satisfying thing you'll hear all week. Richard Chambers arrived at the bridal suite 6 minutes after his daughter's call, still adjusting his tuxedo, his silver hair perfectly combed, his face set in the controlled expression of a man who had built an empire by never showing weakness. Behind him came Daniel Whitmore, the family attorney, a man in his 60s with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a leather briefcase that had seen the inside of more courtrooms than most lawyers would in 3 lifetimes. Melissa met them at the door. Close it, she said. Lock it. And listen. She played the recording. For 2 minutes and 37 seconds, Richard Chambers stood perfectly still. His face cycling through confusion, understanding, fury, and finally something cold and calculating that Melissa recognized. She'd seen that look when competitors tried to lowball him on contracts. She'd seen it when former partners tried to cut him out of deals. She'd never seen it directed at someone who was supposed to become his son-in-law. When the recording ended, Richard's voice was quiet. Too quiet. I'll kill him. No, Melissa said. You won't. Melissa, Daniel interjected. We should cancel the wedding immediately. We have grounds for... We're not canceling. Both men stared at her. Sweetheart, Richard started. You can't possibly want to... I don't want to marry him, Daddy, but I do want everyone in that ballroom to know who he really is. She turned to Daniel. The prenup he signed. Is it actually full of loopholes like he said? Daniel's lips twitched. Almost a smile. I drafted that prenup myself, Melissa. It's ironclad. His lawyer clearly didn't read past the first 3 pages, because everything that matters is in pages 4 through 12. What matters? Fraud clause, Daniel said simply. Section 12, paragraph 4. If either party entered the marriage under false pretenses, through deception, or with intent to defraud, the marriage is voidable and the offending party forfeits all claims to marital assets, gifts, or support. He also signed a fidelity clause and a full disclosure requirement regarding debts. Melissa nodded slowly. Did he disclose his debts? He disclosed about $12,000. Richard's voice was ice. My security team found the real number this morning. I was going to tell you after the honeymoon. What's the real number? $187,000. 3 maxed credit cards, a car payment he's 4 months behind on, and a personal loan from a man named Victor Salazar that he definitely didn't want anyone knowing about. Victor Salazar, Daniel said quietly. He operates several payday loan establishments in the 3rd Ward. Not the kind of man you want to owe money to. Melissa absorbed this. Every romantic gesture, every expensive dinner, every surprise trip, all of it funded by debt he planned to pay off with her family's money. She should have felt devastated. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Something like clarity. Here's what we're going to do, she said. I'm going to walk down that aisle. I'm going to smile. I'm going to say, I do. And I'm going to let Tyler think he won. Melissa. Then at the reception during the toasts, I'm going to give a speech. And during that speech, I'm going to play this recording for every single person in that ballroom. Richard stared at his daughter. Something shifted in his expression. Pride, maybe. Recognition. You want to destroy him publicly. I want everyone he came here to impress to know exactly what he is. I want his family to know. I want Ryan Torres to know there are consequences. I want every business contact he hoped to make through you to know that Tyler Morrison is a con artist who targeted your daughter for her money. She met her father's eyes. He wanted the Chambers name. Let's show him what the Chambers name can do. Richard was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Daniel. What else do we need? Daniel opened his briefcase. I have the prenup here. I also have the background check results from this morning. And I can have annulment papers drafted within the hour. We can file Monday morning. Do it, Richard said. One more thing, Melissa said. Ryan Torres. He works with Tyler at Wellington Real Estate. He's been part of this from the beginning. Jim Wellington owes me a favor, Richard said. Several favors, actually. I'll make a call Monday. Melissa nodded. Then let's go have a wedding. Samantha helped her touch up her makeup. Richard went downstairs to take his place. Daniel slipped into the back of the ballroom with his briefcase. Everything looked perfectly normal. No one knew that the bride walking toward the altar was walking toward revenge. The ceremony was beautiful. The grand ballroom had been transformed into a garden of white roses and candlelight. 300 guests filled the gilded chairs. Viewing their faces turned toward the altar where Tyler Morrison stood waiting, his smile radiant, his dark suit impeccable, his best man Ryan beside him looking smug and satisfied. The orchestra played Pachelbel's canon. The doors opened, and Melissa Chambers appeared on her father's arm, a vision in white silk and lace, her smile perfect, her eyes bright. Tyler actually teared up when he saw her. The actor in him was committed to the role. Melissa floated down the aisle, greeting familiar faces with small nods, her train flowing behind her like a river of silk. She kept her eyes on Tyler, kept her smile soft and loving, kept her heart locked in a steel vault where nothing could touch it. When she reached the altar, Richard placed her hand in Tyler's. The traditional gesture. giving away the bride. Richard leaned close to Tyler, as if offering a blessing. His whisper was barely audible. "Smile while you can." Tyler's expression flickered with confusion, but only for a second. Richard stepped back and took his seat beside Victoria, whose smile was a little too fixed, a little too bright. The officiant began. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Tyler James Morrison and Melissa Ann Chambers in holy matrimony." The words washed over Melissa like water over stone. She said her lines perfectly. She gazed into Tyler's eyes with appropriate adoration. She let him slide the ring onto her finger. When it was his turn to speak, Tyler delivered his vows with practiced sincerity. "Melissa, from the moment I saw you at that gala, I knew my life would never be the same. You make me want to be a better man. I promise to love you, to cherish you, to support you in everything you do. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your forever." The guests sighed. Tyler's mother dabbed at her eyes. Ryan Torres smiled like a man watching his best friend close a deal. Melissa smiled too. Then it was her turn. "Tyler." She paused just long enough for something to shift in the air. "Meeting you changed my life in ways I never expected. You showed me things about myself I didn't know. You taught me things I'll never forget." She let those words hang for just a moment. Tyler beamed, oblivious. "I take you as my husband, knowing exactly who you are." If Tyler noticed the edge in those words, he didn't show it. The officiant asked if anyone objected. Richard shifted in his seat. Daniel's hand tightened on his briefcase. Melissa gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. "Not yet. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Tyler kissed her triumphantly, his hands on her waist, dipping her slightly for the photographers. The guests erupted in applause. The orchestra swelled. Rice flew through the air. Tyler Morrison thought he'd just won the lottery. He had no idea he'd just walked into a trap. The reception was everything money could buy. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the grand ballroom. The tables were draped in ivory silk, adorned with centerpieces of white roses and orchids that cost more per arrangement than most people's car payments. A 12-piece orchestra played softly while guests found their seats, greeting old friends and making new connections. 300 of Houston's elite, business leaders, society matrons, old money families, and new wealth entrepreneurs. Everyone Tyler had hoped to impress, to network with, to eventually exploit through his connection to the Chambers family. They would all be watching. The first dance was perfect. Tyler led Melissa across the floor with confident grace, spinning her, dipping her, murmuring, "I love you" into her ear every time they came close. "I love you too," she whispered back each time. It wasn't a lie. She did love him. Loved the man she thought he was. The man who had never existed. That love was dying with every spin across the floor. By the time the song ended, it would be dead entirely. The father-daughter dance came next. Richard held his daughter close, his hand steady on her back. His expression controlled for the cameras, but his eyes fierce. "You don't have to do this," he murmured. "We can still handle it privately." "No." Melissa's voice was soft but steel. "He wanted a public wedding. He gets a public ending. I'm proud of you." "I know, Daddy." The mother-son dance followed. Tyler's mother, Margaret Morrison, a kind-faced woman in a modest blue dress, held her son and wept with happiness. She was a retired schoolteacher from Katy. She'd raised Tyler as a single mother after his father left. She'd worked double shifts to put him through college. She had no idea who her son had become. Melissa watched them dance and felt something unexpected. Pity. Not for Tyler, for Margaret. For the woman who would learn tonight that her son was a fraud, a liar, a con artist who had targeted a young woman for her family's money. That would be the hardest part of what came next. But it had to be done. The cake was cut. Champagne flowed. Toasts began. Ryan Torres stood first, champagne flute in hand, his smile cocky and practiced. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. "I've known Tyler since our freshman year at Texas State. We were roommates, business partners, and brothers in every way that matters." He launched into a carefully rehearsed speech, full of college stories and inside jokes, painting Tyler as a charming rogue who'd finally been tamed by the love of a good woman. Tyler finally found someone who can keep him in line, Ryan said, getting the expected laugh. Melissa, I don't know how you did it, but you managed to land the biggest catch in Houston real estate. More laughter. Tyler beamed. Ryan raised his glass. To Tyler and Melissa. May your life together be everything you dreamed. Everyone drank. Ryan sat down, satisfied with his performance. The wedding coordinator approached the microphone. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the bride would like to say a few words. Tyler looked surprised but pleased. Melissa hadn't mentioned wanting to give a speech, but he smiled and gestured for her to go ahead, confident that whatever she said would only add to the perfect image of their perfect union. Melissa rose from her seat. She smoothed her gown. She walked to the microphone slowly, deliberately, her heels silent on the ballroom carpet. 300 pairs of eyes followed her. She took the microphone, smiled warmly at the crowd. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. This is the most beautiful wedding I could have ever imagined, and it means everything to have all of you here to share it with us. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. I want to thank my parents, Richard and Victoria, for making all of this possible. For raising me to believe that I deserve to be loved honestly and completely. For teaching me that the truth always matters, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. Richard caught her eye, nodded almost imperceptibly. I want to thank Tyler's mother, Margaret, for welcoming me into her family. She raised an extraordinary son. Margaret smiled through happy tears. Melissa's expression shifted, subtly, almost imperceptibly, but those who knew her well saw something change behind her eyes. I also want to share something with all of you. A story about love, about trust, about the man I married today. Tyler's smile flickered. Just a little. This afternoon, about an hour before our ceremony, I realized I had forgotten my grandmother's earrings in the groom's suite. They were supposed to be my something old. So, I went to get them myself. She paused. The room was utterly silent. When I got to the door, I heard voices inside. Tyler and Ryan were talking. At first, I thought I'd just wait until they were done. But then I heard my name. Tyler's face had frozen. Beside him, Ryan had gone pale. I heard things I think you all should hear too. Melissa pulled her phone from the hidden pocket in her gown. The same phone that had been recording in the hallway hours earlier. She connected it to the ballroom speaker system. The coordinator had helped her set it up during cocktail hour, believing it was for a surprise video tribute. This is a recording from approximately 2:15 this afternoon. She pressed play. Tyler's voice filled the ballroom, amplified by speakers that had been designed to carry orchestral music to every corner of the massive room. Bro, she has no idea. None. She thinks this is real. 300 guests went absolutely still. Playing her? I've been closing her. This is the biggest deal of my career. Tyler shot to his feet. Melissa, that's not... You're misunderstanding. 2 years, maybe 3. Long enough to get access to Daddy's money. Long enough for some assets to become joint. Then I file, claim irreconcilable differences, and walk away with half of whatever he's given us. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tyler's mother had covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes wide with disbelief. The commission on this one? About $20 million. Give or take. The recording ended. The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler was standing, his face white, his mouth opening and closing like a fish drowning in air. Melissa, he finally managed. That's... You have to understand. I was joking. Ryan and I were just... You were just planning to defraud me, Melissa said, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone. You were just laughing about how easy it was to fool me. You were just calling my father a sucker who would believe anything. She turned to face him fully. Sit down, Tyler. I'm not finished. He sat. He had no choice. 300 pairs of eyes were pinning him to his chair. Daniel Whitmore rose from his seat at the back of the ballroom and walked forward, his briefcase in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying the authority of 3 decades of legal practice. My name is Daniel Whitmore. I'm the Chambers family attorney. Don, I drafted the prenuptial agreement that Mr. Morrison signed 6 months ago. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a document. Mr. Morrison told his friend that this prenup was full of loopholes that his lawyer could drive a truck through. He was wrong. He held up the document. Section 12, paragraph 4 of this agreement specifically states that if either party entered the marriage under false pretenses, through deception, or with intent to defraud, the marriage is voidable and the offending party forfeits all claims to marital assets, gifts, or support. Tyler's face went from white to gray. Based on the recording, Mrs. Morrison, he paused, correcting himself. Based on the recording Ms. Chambers just played, we will be filing for annulment Monday morning. Mr. Morrison will receive nothing. Richard Chambers stood from his seat. I also want everyone here to know something about the man my daughter almost married. He pulled a folder from inside his jacket. My security team completed a background check this morning. Tyler Morrison has $187,000 in personal debt, 3 maxed-out credit cards, a car payment he's 4 months behind on, and a personal loan from a man named Victor Salazar, who I'm told operates some very predatory lending establishments in the 3rd Ward. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Tyler's real estate colleagues were shifting uncomfortably. Every romantic gesture he made toward my daughter, Richard continued, every expensive dinner, every surprise trip, was funded by debt he planned to pay off with my family's money. He looked directly at Tyler. You wanted access to the Chambers name. Now you have it. Everyone in this room will know exactly who Tyler Morrison is. And by Monday morning, so will Jim Wellington. Ryan Torres, who had been trying to sink into his chair and disappear, suddenly snapped upright. Wellington? Jim Wellington? That's your boss, Richard finished. Yes. I play golf with him. We'll be having a very interesting conversation about the professional ethics of the agents he employs. Melissa took the microphone one final time. Tyler, I want you to understand something. She looked at him with an expression of absolute calm. Not anger, not tears, just cold, clear certainty. I loved you. I actually loved you. I thought you were my future, my partner, my best friend. And the whole time, I was just a mark, a target, a deal to be closed. She removed her wedding ring, the 5-carat diamond he'd put on her finger 30 minutes earlier. This ring was purchased with the credit card that's 3 months past due. She set it on the table. I don't want it. I don't want anything from you. She turned to Margaret Morrison, whose face was streaked with tears. Mrs. Morrison, I'm so sorry you had to find out this way. This isn't your fault. You raised your son the best you could. He made his own choices. She picked up her train and walked toward the exit. At the doors, she turned back one final time. Enjoy the rest of the reception, everyone. The food's already paid for. And Tyler? Good luck with Victor Salazar. I hear he doesn't like waiting for his money. The ballroom doors closed behind her with a soft, final click. Behind her, chaos erupted. But Melissa didn't hear it. She was already walking toward the elevator, toward freedom, toward the rest of her life. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Tyler Morrison didn't make it out of the ballroom for nearly an hour. Every person he'd hoped to network with suddenly needed to be somewhere else. Every hand he tried to shake was pulled away. Every business card he'd collected throughout the night was quietly retrieved and pocketed. Ryan Torres slipped out through a service entrance, his face the color of curdled milk, his phone already blowing up with texts from colleagues who'd heard what happened. Margaret Morrison sat alone at her table, surrounded by the ruins of her son's wedding, crying softly while strangers offered awkward condolences. Tyler tried to approach her, but she held up a hand. Don't. Her voice cracked. Don't you dare come near me right now. Mom, I can explain. You can explain why you used that girl? Why you lied to everyone, including me? She stood, her modest blue dress suddenly looking like armor. I worked double shifts for 18 years to raise you, Tyler. I taught you to be honest, to work hard, to earn what you have. Mom, I didn't raise a con artist. She picked up her purse and walked out, leaving her son standing alone in a ballroom full of people who wanted nothing to do with him. Monday morning came quickly. At 9 a.m., Daniel Whitmore filed annulment papers with the Harris County clerk. By 9:30, the paperwork was in process. By noon, Legal notices had been sent to Tyler's attorney, who responded with a meek acknowledgement that his client would not be contesting the annulment. At 2 p.m., Jim Wellington called Tyler and Ryan into his office at Wellington Real Estate. The meeting lasted 4 minutes. "Richard Chambers called me personally," Jim said, his face carved from stone. "He played me the recording. Both of you are terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings." Tyler tried to argue. Jim held up a hand. "You attempted to defraud the daughter of one of the most respected businessmen in Houston. You did it while employed at my firm. You used our reputation to gain access to social circles where you could find wealthy targets." He leaned forward. "Get out of my building. And don't ever use Wellington Real Estate as a reference. If anyone calls asking about you, I'll tell them exactly what you are." By 3 p.m., word had spread through Houston's real estate community. By the end of the week, Tyler Morrison couldn't get a meeting with a single agency in the city. By the end of the month, he'd expanded his job search to Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. No one would touch him. The wedding had been attended by too many people who talked to too many other people. The recording had been shared, reshared, posted online, dissected by strangers who had never met Melissa Chambers but admired what she'd done. Tyler Morrison's name became synonymous with fraud in Houston's business circles. His professional reputation was gone. His personal reputation was worse. Victor Salazar did not wait patiently for his money. 3 weeks after the wedding, Tyler's car was repossessed from the parking lot of the budget apartment he'd been forced to move into. A week after that, two very large men visited him at night to explain that Mr. Salazar expected payment in full within 30 days, or there would be consequences. Tyler called his mother for help. She didn't answer. He called Ryan, who had moved back in with his parents in Galveston and wasn't taking calls from anyone connected to the disaster. He called former colleagues, former friends, former anyone. No one answered. He was, for the first time in his life, completely alone with the consequences of his choices. Melissa, meanwhile, was healing. The first week after the wedding, she didn't leave her parents' house. She cried more than she'd expected. Not for Tyler, for the man she thought he was, the future she thought they'd have, the love she thought was real. Sam came over every day. They watched bad movies and ate ice cream and talked about everything and nothing. "Do you regret it?" Sam asked one night. "Going through with the whole thing?" Melissa thought about it. "Number one, I regret loving him. I regret trusting him. But exposing him? That I don't regret." She paused. "He would have done this to someone else, you know. If not me, then some other woman with a wealthy family. Some other target. I didn't just protect myself. I protected whoever came next." 3 months later, Melissa was back at work full-time at Chambers Construction, throwing herself into projects with renewed energy. The whispers had faded. The story had become legend, something people brought up at parties as an example of karma in action. "Did you hear about the Chambers wedding?" they'd say. The bride played a recording of the groom admitting it was all a scam, in front of 300 people. Melissa didn't mind being that story. It was better than being Tyler's victim. 6 months after the wedding, she attended a charity gala at the Houston Museum of Natural Science, the same venue where she'd met Tyler 18 months earlier. She almost didn't go, but her mother insisted. "You can't hide forever," Victoria said. "And frankly, darling, you have nothing to hide from." The gala was elegant, filled with familiar faces and new ones. Melissa made small talk with business associates, accepted congratulations on a recent Chambers construction project, and generally tried to remember how to be a person in public. She was standing near the dinosaur exhibit, sipping champagne and contemplating the inevitability of extinction, when a voice interrupted her thoughts. "T-Rex, huh? Personally, I always liked the Triceratops." She turned. The man beside her was about her age, maybe a few years older, brown hair, slightly disheveled, kind eyes behind glasses that looked like they'd been sat on at least once. He was wearing a suit that fit well but wasn't designer, and his smile was slightly crooked. He looked absolutely nothing like Tyler Morrison. "I'm David," he said. "David Chen. I work in nonprofit management. Specifically, I run an organization that provides job training for formerly incarcerated individuals." Melissa raised an eyebrow. "That's quite an opening line. I figured honesty was the best policy." He smiled that crooked smile again. I also figured you probably had enough of men who pretend to be something they're not. She stiffened slightly. Yeah, you know who I am. Everyone here knows who you are. You're Melissa Chambers, the woman who exposed her con artist fiancé at her own wedding reception. He shrugged. I read about it, watched some of the videos people posted. I'm not gonna lie and pretend I didn't. And yet you're talking to me anyway. I'm talking to you because of it, not despite it. What you did took incredible courage. Most people would have canceled the wedding and dealt with it privately. You stood up in front of everyone and demanded accountability. He paused. I thought that was pretty impressive. Melissa studied him for a long moment, looking for the angle, looking for the con. She didn't find one. You run a non-profit, she said slowly. That doesn't pay well. It pays terribly, he agreed cheerfully. I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Montrose. I drive a Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it, and I'm still paying off student loans from grad school. He met her eyes directly. I'm not here to network with your father. I'm not here to access your family's money. I'm here because my organization received a grant from the Chambers Foundation last year, and I wanted to see if there were any museum benefactors who might be interested in supporting workforce development programs. He held out his hand. But I saw you standing here looking thoughtful, and I thought you might be more interesting than another conversation about tax deductions. Melissa looked at his hand for a moment, then she shook it. Melissa, she said, but you already knew that. I did, but it seemed polite to wait for you to introduce yourself. She laughed, an actual laugh. The first genuine one in longer than she could remember. They talked for 2 hours. He was funny, self-deprecating, passionate about his work in a way that was almost naive. He asked her questions about herself, not about her father's company or her family's net worth. He listened to her answers. When the gala ended, he asked if she'd like to get coffee sometime. Just coffee, no pressure, no expectations. She said yes. 1 year later, they were engaged. The wedding was smaller the second time, 50 people. A garden ceremony at the Chambers family estate. No orchestra, no imported roses, no 300-person guest list. Just the people who mattered. Melissa wore a simple ivory dress, no cathedral train, no $50,000 price tag, just something beautiful and comfortable that made her feel like herself. David teared up when he saw her. Real tears. Nothing practiced or performed. When he said his vows, they were simple. Melissa, I don't have much to offer you except myself. My honesty, my loyalty, my absolute commitment to building a life together where we support each other, challenge each other, and love each other exactly as we are. He paused. I know what you've been through. I know you have every reason to be cautious. So I'm not asking you to trust me based on words. I'm asking you to let me prove it. Every day. For the rest of our lives. Melissa didn't cry. She smiled. David, she said, the first man I almost married saw me as a transaction. It means to an end. A target. She took his hands. You see me as a partner. A person. Someone worth knowing for exactly who she is, not what her name can get you. She squeezed his hands. That's worth more than anything my father's money could buy. And yes, I will let you prove it every day. For the rest of our lives, the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. This time, when Melissa was kissed at the altar, it was real. 1 year later, at the rehearsal dinner for a friend's wedding, someone asked Melissa about her first wedding, the infamous one, the legend. She smiled over her glass of wine. It was the best worst day of my life, she said. How do you figure? Because I learned the most important lesson anyone can learn. That the people who work hardest to deceive you are counting on your kindness, your trust, your desire to see the best in them. She looked across the room at David, who was making her friend's nervous fiancé laugh with some terrible joke. Tyler Morrison taught me that not everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt. But he also taught me that surviving betrayal doesn't have to make you bitter. It can make you smarter, stronger, more certain of what you actually deserve. She raised her glass. So here's to the con artists. The liars, the people who think they're too clever to get caught. May they all get exactly what's coming to them. So, viewers, what do you think about Melissa's story? Have you ever discovered someone you loved wasn't who they pretended to be? Have you ever had to find the courage to expose someone in front of everyone? Have you ever rebuilt your life after betrayal? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own strength, if it made you think about what you would do in Melissa's shoes, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Because here's what I want you to remember. Some people will try to make you a chapter in their story, a mark, a target, a stepping stone to something they want. But you get to decide how your story ends. You are never as foolish as someone wants you to believe. The lies people tell always catch up to them eventually. And the truth, spoken clearly at the right moment to the right audience, is the most powerful weapon there is. Until next time.